And welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a delicious dessert recipe for you. This is a very simple peanut butter cookie recipe, and you can see here we've got these beautiful peanut butter cookies with the traditional crossed fork pattern on top, and we're going to be making these with some beautiful natural peanut butter as well, so you don't have to use the hydrogenated kind for this. And here's our ingredients. So here we've got our crunchy peanut butter. We're also going to be using some butter, an egg, some vanilla, some salt, some baking powder, some plain all-purpose flour, as well as some brown and white sugar. And this is one of those recipes you can control the sugar in this one a little bit if you like. You can tone it down a bit. First thing we're going to do is we're going to cream the butter and sugar together. So starting off with our mixer, we're going to put the butter and sugar all together, and we're going to use our paddle on the mixer. So we're going to get all this going. We're going to start mixing those together until they are well combined. And here we go. Everything's getting started. And this is always a very frequent starting point for most cookie recipes and that sort of thing. You're definitely going to get the butter and sugar creamed together. Now, once they look like they're getting pretty close, we are going to scrape down the sides. We're going to be coming back to that a number of times in this video because you just need to scrape down the sides of your mixer. You want to make sure that everything's being incorporated, that there's no lumps of sugar, that there's no lumps of butter that are unincorporated. So you just want to scrape down the sides and scoop all the way down to the bottom to make sure that there's no unmixed sugar, unmixed butter, anything like that. We're just going to mix that all together, scrape it off the sides, and make sure that it all gets incorporated smoothly. Once we're done that, back into the mixer, and away we go. Now we're going to add our salt, as well as our peanut butter. Now we're using a natural peanut butter. This is just one of those peanut butters that is made of just peanuts. It's unsalted, it doesn't have any hydrogenated oils or anything added, it is just ground peanuts. We like chunky peanut butter, and we like how the texture comes out in the final cookie as well. We like to have these little crunchy bits of peanut in there. So we're going to add that to our creamed butter and sugar and the salt and get that mixing all together as well. Now as it stands right now, it's a very, very loose mixture, and again, once it's pretty decently combined, we are going to go and scrape down the sides and mix all the way down to the bottom to make sure there are no unincorporated bits of peanut butter, that there's no chunks of butter and sugar that aren't getting mixed into our mixture right now. So just going to scrape down the paddle, scrape down the sides of the mixing bowl, and just make sure that everything is well combined and completely incorporated. Now you can certainly taste it at this point to see what it tastes like. It is fantastic. It's sweetened peanut butter with a little bit of butter in it. And now we're going to add our egg, as well as our vanilla. And please use real vanilla if at all possible. It really does have a much better flavor. So we're using some real vanilla extract there. And then back in until everything is well incorporated. Now once you start adding things like egg, you do want to, once again, scrape down the sides once it looks mostly incorporated. We did notice that there was some bits of egg that had sort of moved up the paddle and were stuck on the sides of the bowl. So we want to make sure those get all combined and mixed in smoothly. There we go, just stirring all the way down to the bottom to make sure it's all well combined. Once that's done, we are going to go ahead and start with the dry ingredients. We're going to mix the baking powder and flour together, and you want to make sure that they're well combined as well. You can also sift them together if you prefer to do it like that. A whisk will work for this, but a fork usually does just fine. So we're going to add all of the dry ingredients at the same time. So all of that flour and baking powder is going to go in one batch. And then we're just going to pulse it slowly so that it doesn't puff up everywhere and cause a huge mess and make a big cloud of flour. So just pulse it a few times to get it started until it starts to come together. You can see there, it is starting to come together. And then by the time it reaches this point, it's sort of a rough dough batter sort of thing at this point. And once again, we are going to scrape down the paddle and scrape down the sides to make sure there's no lumps of unincorporated flour, no lumps of butter, no chunks of peanut butter, anything like that is unincorporated. So you want to get all the way down to the bottom and make sure that everything is mixed in. You don't want any uneven lumps of things. So there we go. Once you've got all that done, we're just going to give it one last little mix. You don't want to overmix them. You don't want to make too much gluten in there. We're just going to try and get all well combined. You want to have a pretty tender cookie when this is all said and done. Now, when it's finished mixing, it does need to sit in the fridge for a little while. So we popped that in the fridge just until it was cool. And that makes it a lot easier to work with. So we just spread it up the sides of the bowl a little bit until it was cool. And now you can make some, mix it into balls. And we're going to have amounts in the description below as well. And then for that traditional look, we're going to just add a little impression of a fork on it twice. Now, the thing about this kind of cookie and this peanut butter cookie is that it does not spread out. So if you put the balls on a silpat or on parchment or anything like that, as they cook, they're not going to change shape. This is why we're sort of spreading them out a little bit. So you can see we're putting on the parchment here. And if they're a little bit crumbly, you can just like mush them back together with your fingers. That's just fine. But they tend not to change shape all that much when they cook. They're not going to spread out. So you want to make sure that you spread them out a little bit with that fork ahead of time. So that's going to go into our preheated oven. And you want to pull these out when they're just starting to show a little bit of brown around the edge. And they're perfectly set. So these ones are just showing a tiny, tiny bit of brown. And they're very, very tender. So we're not even going to take them off the baking tray until they're cool. And then once they're cool, we can just pop them onto a plate. And these are ready to go. You can eat them warm. You can see a little bit of brown in the bottom there. That is perfect. That is just where they're done. And that's it. It's a really, really simple recipe. Really, really delicious. We love peanut butter cookies, and we love that crunchy style. We love to have those little bits of peanut in there for texture. Really nice and absolutely fantastic. So if you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Kalo try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.